It's a real problem in the United States. And we have a solution that is totally apolitical. It's like people from both sides of the aisle could get on this and it because it makes sense and it can make a difference. Is it a magic cure-all? No, because good security comes in layers. It's not going to be like, oh yeah, we're going to solve every problem. Like, no, but it is definitely a cost-effective solution that can make a difference for the long term. And I mean, even if we just save one life because we put this company together, it's going to make my day. And so when people ask what do we do about mass shootings, active shooters, people answer ZeroEyes.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Security VIP Podcast, the official podcast of the security industry and home of nothing but the truth. As always, I'm your host, Taylor May. And on today's episode, we're going to be speaking about a technology that has recently gained a lot of attention in our industry. That's right. Weapon detection is something that's been talked about for years, but never really has been perfected when it came to a real-world environment and scenario. That is until, of course, I came across a company called ZeroEyes. Based out of the great city of Philadelphia, ZeroEyes was built with a team of U.S. military veterans, consultants, and technologists that focus solely on preventing active shooter situations and putting our country's safety and security at the forefront of everything they do. To talk about ZeroEyes further, it is my pleasure to welcome and introduce the CEO of the company, Mr. Mike Lahiff, to the Security VIP Podcast today. Mike, how are we doing today, man?
Awesome. Thank you for having me on, Taylor. Appreciate it.
Of course, man. And you and I have not officially met yet, but I have heard great things about the company ZeroEyes and all you guys are doing. And you guys are recently new to the industry, which is why I think I wanted to have you guys on, because obviously here in Texas and obviously a school environment, shootings do occur. So we're going to talk about weapon detection here in a second. But Mike, maybe just give us a little background about yourself, brother, and what you bring to the industry.
Yeah. I guess I'll rewind the clock a little bit. I grew up in Philadelphia. I was in college when 9/11 happened, and I grew up playing in the woods, hunting, all that fun stuff, and I was pretty enamored by the military. Read a couple SEAL books on Vietnam, about SEALs in Vietnam when I was younger, and so when 9/11 happened, soon after, the bug was there, and I couldn't get it out of my head, so I dropped out of college and enlisted in the military to in the Navy to become a SEAL. I went to boot camp, did all that. I actually was in a regular Navy for some time. I didn't make it through SEAL training my first go around, went back and then made it through. And I was at SEAL Team 4. I did that until 2013. Did multiple tours and then finished my undergrad while I was in the military on nights and weekends. But I've 4 kids. I have a family of 4 kids, and it was just tough. You're never home, and I just passed my 10-year mark, and so it was time for a career change. No idea what I wanted to do, so I was like, I'll apply to business schools and figure out what I want to be when I grow up. I was fortunate enough to get into Wharton Business School here in Philadelphia, my hometown, and so I was like, oh, perfect, great school. Never thought I'd get in there, and I did. I was very fortunate, and so I went to business school, and I dabbled in a little bit of everything. I started off in tech startups. That's where I met our current CTO, Tim Solzer. I actually worked for him, my first job out of the Navy. Then did some work actually down in Texas in the energy industry. I spent a lot of time in Houston and going out like Odessa and everything I was doing private equity in the energy space. Then ended up at Comcast as a director of digital program management. That's when I started getting a taste on AI and what was happening with AI in the AI world. And then ultimately fell on ZeroEyes.
It's great to hear that. And first off, Mike, thank you for your service, brother. Really highly respected, individual. I definitely appreciate everything you've done for our country. So thank you for that. And, going off ZeroEyes and obviously many hats, it sounds like you've wore before you got the ZeroEyes, but going to ZeroEyes, weapon detection, man, I know we're going to talk about here in a second, but I've got a lot of K through 12 clients here in Texas, obviously, Santa Fe ISD, Texas City ISD, Barbers Hill, a lot of guys in the Houston market. And they're always asking Taylor, does AnyVision have an AI solution for weapon detection? And, in the past, we've kind of doubled that idea, but that's not really our specialty. So that's kind of why I wanted to have you on today. So maybe talk about ZeroEyes and what weapon detection means for you guys at the company.
Yeah. So when we're going back to 2017, me and a couple of the other co-founders before we had a business together. We're friends. We worked together in the SEAL teams. It was Rob Huberty's our COO. I met Rob in 2005 in the SEAL teams, and we deployed together overseas. Same with Sam Alimo, Dustin Brooks, Caleb Jones, Tim Solzer. I worked with in the tech startup world. We'd get together over beers, coffee, whatever, and just kick around different business ideas. We kept coming back to the active shooter problem. In some form or fashion, it kind of came back to that, because when you were thinking about starting a business, you're like, well, you have to solve a problem. And the active shooter problem, mass shootings in the United States, ever since Columbine, have been increasing year over year. It's like almost a disease. But we didn't want to be just straight up security consultants. We're like, that's not really going to help solve the problem. And then when we're looking at like different case studies on it, we're like, how do we shift the response? How do we decrease the response time and shift the timeline to the left? And I knew there was stuff going on with facial recognition, and I met some computer vision guys that were working on that. And I was like, oh, that's cool. But then going to 2018, Parkland happened. And that was pretty devastating to everyone in the country, obviously. And then my oldest daughter, she was in 7th grade at the time, they started doing lockdown drills at her school. And she came home upset from it. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, I grew up with fire alarm drills. My parents grew up with like nuclear fallout shelter drills. Now our kids are growing up with active shooter drills. I was like, this is fucking insane. So then I was at her school for a lacrosse practice, and it was indoor because it was the beginning of the season. It was cold out. And I was looking around, and there was cameras. Literally, it seemed like every 15 feet in the hallways. And I was like, rough estimate, there's probably 200 plus cameras in this junior high. It's a big junior high, but I was like, so a security guard was walking by, unarmed security guard, just radio. It's like, who's watching the cameras? He laughed. He was like, no one's watching the cameras. I was like, what? And he was like, no. He was like, we only go back to them after something happens. And I was like, and it was just like right there. I was like, if we can use these things to detect weapons and that alert is sent to first responders, ideally before shots are even fired, I was like, that could be a massive game changer, because now you're giving people what the shooter looks like, what type of weapon they have, which is super important. Is it an assault rifle, or is it a pistol, or is it a double barrel shotgun? Like what? And then where they're located at with the timestamp. So when police are responding, instead of rolling up to like a 50-acre campus, they could dial right into the location. It might not be the exact like 8-digit grid of the location, but it's going to be, at least they're not showing up on the west side of the school when they should be on the east side, like stuff that happened in Parkland. Because I would have loved to have that information when we're in the SEAL teams. Like that didn't exist. And so we started ZeroEyes, and that's what we did.
What you just brought up there, Mike, is what I refer to as a reactive approach when it comes to school environment. Only good for after the fact for those cameras. I've got 200 plus cameras, but we have to wait until something happens to actually review the footage. Well, guys, what the hell does that solve? It doesn't solve anything. Maybe good from a forensics perspective if someone was on site. But to Mike's point, if there's a mental ill kid that's got behavioral issues, maybe posting something on social media, he needs to be watched, monitored, or tracked, especially if he's carrying a weapon, whether that's an AK or a shotgun or even a Glock, right? We have to have this kind of proactive mindset. So that's what Mike just referred to. That's something I appreciate. And Mike, you know me, man. AnyVision, facial recognition has been a dud in our industry for so long. And my next question about this, with facial recognition, it's got some scrutiny over the couple of years because of racial bias, with false positives versus true positives. And this is kind of what I stress the point with all my episodes is when you partner with a manufacturer that specializes in only a certain analytic or a certain swim lane, that's all they do 24/7, then you're majority of the half the time, that analytic is going to be perfected beyond everything else you see in the industry, which I think really leads to my next question here with weapon detection. When it comes to weapon detection, we want to eliminate false positives. We want to eliminate, if a girl's carrying a purse or a clutch, whatever it may be. We want to make sure that's an actual weapon. So talk about why your AI and neural nets with weapon detection are so unique versus kind of what we've seen in the past when it came to this analytic. How's that special?
Yeah. So when we first said we were going to start this company, I was like, someone has to be doing this. I was like, there's no way someone's not doing this. So what do? You go to Google, and I Googled it. At the time, no one was doing it. There's a few other startups that have cropped up since then, but at the time, no one was doing it. And so, like any good startup, we started in my basement and my garage. Like literally, I had guys sleeping in hammocks in my basement for like 6 months working on this. And we're like, all right, well, we need to get a minimum viable product here. And so let's start. This isn't going to work unless we can detect guns. So let's see if we can detect guns. What everyone's doing out there, well, I shouldn't say everyone. What a lot of people do when they say they're going to go start an AI company and do a computer vision model for any type of object detection, be it face, a weapon, you want to detect chairs, it doesn't matter. You need data, so people build a web scraping tool and they scrape the internet for images and they say like gun, and they'll go get like 1 million images. And they're like, oh, I got the best data set in the world. And it's like, no, you don't. It's a bunch of garbage. It's garbage. If you're putting garbage in, you're going to get garbage out.
Amen.
And so, but that's what we did in the beginning too. And we made a model and we ran it over a YouTube video. It was like a clip of the Matrix movie, where they're walking in through the turnstiles and like spinning around the walls, and it's cool. It's a cool scene. And it was, the model was working great, detecting guns. We're like, oh, this is awesome. We're pumped. So the next stage, we're like, let's get it running on security cameras. And that opened up a whole nother can of worms of pulling a security camera feed, and you have to have a software platform to process it, et cetera. A lot of lessons learned. But once we got it running on a security camera, we ran it over. It was actually hooked up to the back of my house, in my backyard. We walked around. The good thing about having a lot of military guys on your team, we have plenty of guns. We walked around with guns, and it worked like complete garbage. I have a basketball net in the backyard. There was like a lacrosse stick against the lacrosse net in the backyard. It was detecting everything was a gun, even the branches on trees. I was like, well, this isn't going to work. So we went back to the drawing board and we realized the problem was our data. And this was early 2018. And so there was like a team of 10 of us, and we still do it to this day. Because now we just have so much data, it's ridiculous. But we went around to a bunch of different environments. We went to schools. We did it in my backyard. We did it indoor, outdoor, different types of cameras, different heights. We actually even stayed. It was an empty water park down in Delaware in the winter, and we camped out down there, strung cameras all over this water park. We knew the owners, and we filmed ourselves with all different types of guns in all different locations. And then we painstakingly drew boxes around them. The other piece of that, so one, we use our own data. Our whole data set is proprietary to us, and it continues to be. We have an AI lab now set up where every day we have a team of people just creating new data, and it feeds back into our system. Then we have the way we label is it's our secret Coke recipe, and we're very specific in how we do it, and we have quality control. We have a team of people we have a team of annotators, and then those annotators annotate, and then it goes to a quality control, and they check the people's work. And if it's bad, it gets kicked back out, because you can have one bad labeled image in your data set, and it's going to throw shit off, and it's going to impact your false positive rate. And so we meticulously calculated our false positive rate based on false positives per camera per day. And then over time, the more places and the more cameras we deployed on and deployed to, we got that feedback loop of the false positives, also with like us going out and testing for good hits or getting real good hits. and it just keeps feeding back. And so the snake is kind of eating its own tail now, and it's just moving at lightning speed of how fast how much better it's getting.
Mike, and I'm sure that's constantly improving too. I'm sure that neural net and the training, all the data is constantly improving with all these clients you guys and I are picking up. But going off of that, you can train a neural net so well with extreme environments, extreme data sets from all over the world, different lighting scenarios, different camera angles, you name it. But I think the human element is still going to have to be involved in some kind of capacity. So let's talk about that, Mike. As powerful as a resource that ZeroEyes is, it picks up a weapon, it picks up a Glock 9 or Glock 10, right? Someone's got a gun on campus. Some form of secondary judgment still has to be made to say, hey, that's a gun. ZeroEyes picked it up. We have to inform law enforcement. We have to inform, public safety official, whatever it may be. So maybe talk about that process as soon as ZeroEyes and your AI detects a weapon, where is that alert sent and what steps are taking next? Is 911 contacted? How is that alert sent and recognized to the appropriate official?
Yeah, so we put a human in the loop. You got the loop of the message going. We put a human in there for verification. So that way our clients aren't receiving false positives because that'll make them numb to the system at some point, right? This kind of becomes like the boy who cried wolf. So the alerts come to our office. It's in Philadelphia. We're downtown in the Innovation Center building. We're actually moving to a new office next month in Philadelphia to build out our monitoring center. But we do it here, and the alerts come in and we'll say false positive or dispatch. We have some other buttons that comes with it too, but there's no point diving down rabbit holes. If it's false positive, we click false positive and it catches it for reinforcement learning. If it's real, we hit dispatch, and now it goes to the desktop of our end user. So they have a desktop up and it has a map of their grounds, 3D map. You could go up and down different floors and stuff, and it will highlight that camera and that location on there. But it also simultaneously goes to our app, which they'll be carrying. But then we have a partnership with Rapid SOS, a phenomenal company to work with. And they have, I forget what percent, it's like 90+% of the PSAPs, 911 centers in the United States are running Rapid SOS software now. And so we have an integration with them where the alert pushes through and it goes to 911. So now, because a cop isn't going to be sitting there looking at their phone, responding to an event. They're going to go whatever is being said over their cop mic because they're going to have their weapon out and they're going to be looking down their weapon. So they have to get the information from 911. So that was a critical component of that. And that's, we were doing it on our own, and then we met Rapid SOS, and it's been phenomenal working with them.
I like that. I like that a lot, Mike. And, there's got to be that vetting process in place. And I think you guys have that now. And it's all about convenience too, especially with clients in the K-12 sector. They want the easiest path to resistance. Mike Matrenga, which I'm sure will tell you the same thing. You, a Secret Service agent, he'll be upfront with you. He wants the shit that works. And he was skeptical about, my product, AnyVision, about FaceTrack. But until he saw the true positive rating and how the technology works, it's giving a proactive resource to them, such as ZeroEyes. It's giving you guys a tool in the arsenal to activate on these certain events and certain incidents that may occur or could occur on a school campus setting. So speaking of K-12 clients, that's kind of your bread and butter vertical here, Mike, with what you guys do. So maybe talk about some key wins or some key clients you guys have worked with and what the technology has meant to those clients so far today.
Yeah, we started off, our beta site was in a high school in New Jersey. We were fortunate enough to get in there, and the product was even half baked at the time, to be completely honest. But they're like, hey, if you guys get this working, we would love to use it. So we had a great relationship with Ranco, because I can't speak they're just phenomenal people, great school. And so we put the system in there. That was at the end of 2018, beginning of 2019. And we were just heads down focused, tweaking the system, A/B testing on weekends, nights, whenever kids work in school. Got that it took about 6-7 months to get it to a state that we were highly confident that we could take it in other places at this point. And so they became our first customer. Then from there, we went to Kenosha Unified School District. We went to South Pittsburgh down in Tennessee. We have Southside out in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And then we have quite a few pilots going on right now in places in, I probably can't name those clients yet, but we got Florida, Texas coming up. We got California. We did one, probably the largest school district in the United States, but then COVID kind of threw a curveball in the K through 12 space. Obviously, kids are like, their schools are trying to figure out distance learning. But the great thing about that is we were hyper focused on K through 12 in the beginning because it's the right thing to do, and that's what triggered us to solve this anyway. Like no one wants to see a shooting anywhere, but like particularly with schools, it's just more emotionally devastating. And if you're going to solve this problem, solve it at the schools first. But then things picked up for us in the commercial vertical. So we got in with quite a few commercial property groups. So we're in buildings, we're in some malls, key malls, and we have some downtown buildings up in Chicago. We're kicking off some places up in New York here really soon. And then on the DoD federal side, it's picked up for us too. We landed some contracts recently with them.
Awesome. Seems like you guys are spreading the verticals too. I love to appreciate it. And Mike, and going back to K through 12, man, I feel like you now have a personal relationship with K through 12, and you're heavily invested in that vertical because just like you said earlier, you've got 4 kids, right? And you want your kids go into a school environment, obviously when COVID-19 is safe, right? Everyone has an opinion about COVID-19, but when it's appropriate to go back to school, we want to make sure that the resources, technologies, whatever procedures in place at that school environment is going to be a safe upbringing for your students and your own children. And, you know, Mike, when I was back in high school, I couldn't imagine school shootings happening or crime happening because it really didn't happen back then. It only happened really when I graduated college and I saw all these shootings. I was like, God, I can't imagine going back to my high school now because it was an open campus feeling, multiple buildings. All they had was cameras, no school resource officers, nothing. It was just an open campus feeling. So anyone could walk onside that campus and, you know, blow up the whole place if they wanted to, or start shooting people, shooting staff. And, you know, what are you doing behind those cameras? Again, you know, a lot of the time it's just, it's for after the fact, or it's, you know, reviewing footage. So this is this kind of methodology that we have to put in place. And now I think Mike is now invested in that even more now with his own children. And one day when I have kids, I'm going to be a big advocate of going to the school board meeting and say, hey, what are y'all doing behind these security cameras, right? Do you guys have AI in place behind them? What are you guys looking at? And I'm sure half the time the answer is going to remain the same, right? It's going to be, you know, it's only for previous incidents. It's only reviewing. And that's just really what's going to stir up the conversation about AI and how this is approaching the industry. So, you know, always a concern that I see, Mike, when it comes to AI in general is always the hardware aspect behind it. You know, can it work with all my cameras? I have to work with a certain camera. So maybe talk about the hardware component behind ZeroEyes and what end users need, you know, GPU cards, NVIDIA drivers, offers on-prem, you know, what does it look like as far as infrastructure?
Yeah, so we've been remaining camera agnostic. We haven't ran into a camera manufacturer yet where we had an issue working with their feeds, but we haven't worked with every single one yet. We worked with Axis. We worked on Pelco cameras. We worked on Bosch, Honeywell. We worked on Panasonic, Hanwha. They've all worked. Then we have on the GPU side, we use NVIDIA. So we could do on-prem or cloud or a hybrid based. Some of our clients are a hybrid based. Obviously, we like cloud because it's much easier to install. Technically, we only have to step foot on site, even though we still do. The problem with cloud that you run into with some clients is it really depends on their bandwidth and their throughput at that location.
Right.
So sometimes they might be open to doing it on the cloud, but it's just feasibly not going to work because they don't have a big enough pipe. And so we'll go do on-prem. And it really depends on the number of cameras of how we set up that on-prem solution or the cloud solution. And it's based on NVIDIA GPU. So we just see how many cameras are running and then we pull it. In the cloud, it's a little bit different because you could put multiple sites on one machine, but.
That's a big selling point too. Being camera agnostic, using existing infrastructure, that's a big selling point for end users saying, you know what, I can use what you guys have. We can put these at the entrances, the exits, choke point areas. That's a big selling point for any kind of client using existing infrastructure. So, you know, Mike, a side question from this, you know, I forgot to ask this earlier, but, you know, when it comes to actually picking up and detecting a weapon, does it have to be concealed? Does it have to be drawn? What does that look like as far as detection rate? You know, if someone's wearing a jacket, is it hidden? I mean, certain cameras obviously plain tell with that, but what does that look like versus concealed versus not concealed?
So we So it's computer vision. It won't pick up concealed, particularly if it's fully concealed. Partially concealed, there's so many variables that come into play. First,
Right.
the size of the shape. Is it a pistol or is it a rifle? Like how many pixels is it really covering? And then what type of camera is it? How high is the camera? What's the field of view? What's the angle? What's the lens? Indoor, outdoor lighting. But in a nutshell, before we start diving into pixels per square foot and all that crazy banana stuff, is to keep it simple so everyone understands. We say, if you were looking at the video feed as a human sitting in the seat looking at the video screen, and you're like, that's a gun, our system will pick it up and say the same thing. Sometimes it might be an AR that's like 60% concealed, and it might just be like the foregrip and the muzzle sticking out or something. Sometimes, yeah, we'll pick that up. But that's the easiest way to say it. If a human can detect it, our AI will detect it. So that really helps when you're deployed on, say, 200 cameras at a high school. Now you got eyes on 200 cameras looking, gun or no gun, gun or no gun. Oh, here's a gun, like, and send the alert.
That's probably the best description I've heard in a long time when it comes to just AI in general, man. So I definitely agree with what you just said there. So thank you for that. And, speaking about COVID-19, we spoke about this a little bit earlier, but, how has business been for you guys since COVID-19, man? I ask all my manufacturers this question. So, talk about what this has been, how business has been since this whole pandemic started.
Yeah, I think in the beginning when it hit, we were like, wow, what's going to happen? Everyone was, I think like everyone in the United States, no one knew what was next. And none of us could predict the future. But we kept trudging along. That's what's great about our team too, just given the team's background and our culture. We've all been knocked down so many times, but we know how to get back up and stay in the fight. So we're like, hey, whatever comes, we'll weather it. But COVID-19, we were extremely busy. We're still extremely busy. I can't hire some people fast enough, and it's which is a good problem to have. But that's what's tough about this business. There's a flip side to that. The reason we're so busy is because COVID hit. Everyone and their mother ran out and bought assault rifles in the United States, where gun stores started selling out. Gun violence in places like Chicago, New York, Philly, even where we live, going through the roof, because then you have all the problems with the police going on right now too. And it's like, it's this nasty, perfect storm. And it's sad that it's like that. And like, I hope one day that ZeroEyes isn't even needed, because people running around with assault rifles shooting people isn't a problem anymore. But I don't see that going away anytime in the near future in the United States. So yes, it's been very busy for us, but there's like a pessimistic view to that too, from like society, which is tough.
Yeah, to that point, Mike, something my dad always taught me when I joined the industry is, security is a great industry to be in, but security is never going to go away. And as tragic as shootings may occur, we see the police violence and everything going around in the world. Technologies like ZeroEyes is why it's here, is why it's needed right now in the time of a pandemic and time of COVID-19 and time of tragedy, especially 2020, which has been just a giant shit show so far this whole year. But, this is why we have companies like ZeroEyes and Mike and his team and what they do and what they specialize in. So to Mike's point, I hope we don't have to have, this kind of proactive, technologies or certain procedures in place in the future, but more than half to not, security is always going to be implemented in some form or fashion in our everyday society. So, going off of that, what does the procurement process look like for you guys, Mike? And end users buy direct from you guys? Do you guys go through a channel, a dealer, distribution? What is the path to path to procurement look like for you guys for ZeroEyes?
Yeah, so we didn't even really start sales until the end of 2019. And didn't really start getting any kind of stride with it until this year. And we're trying to figure out what works. Is it direct? Is it going through security integrators? Is it how referral partners? How's that going to work? And we've been testing the waters on all three. For a young company, it's tough going straight through security integrators, because a lot of security integrators are going to carry like 90 plus products. We're just like one other line item in their catalog, and we're never going to be priority for them. And we're still trying to figure out who is a good security integrator partner, because there's a lot of bad ones out there that we've realized recently. And we're like, man, this is leaving a bad taste in my mouth. but then we have some that are working out pretty well. So we think it's going to be more on the partnership thing. It's just going to take longer for us to develop, but I see that being probably one of our best avenues in the security space. And we're working on building out like a partner portal later this year, and we're testing it with some of our partners right now. There'll be times when it's going to be direct, but we just have to be careful on how things are priced. So if we do have partners, it's not like we're undercutting them or something, or it's just the nature of the business. So we're trying to figure that out right now.
It's funny you bring that up, man, because, I manage 12 states here at AnyVision, and I've got 6-7 partners that I rely on. We're not direct to end user. We're direct to, security integrator. We use a channel, but I don't have 100 partners to manage because I only want preferred partners that are going to put our analytics, our priority and, our AnyVision in place before anything else. And that's kind of what we have to kind of counterbalance, when it comes to the channel partner, because to Mike's point, there's a lot of shitty integrators out there, and all they care about is an easy sell or whatever the end user says they want, lowest cost. They don't really care about truly vetting a product such as ZeroEyes and pushing that forward. So it's a good balance, Mike. I tend to agree with you, man. We have to find that good balance of going direct versus, the partner portal, channel distribution, whatever that path to, procurement looks like. So, what's next, man? What's next for ZeroEyes? I know you guys are still relatively new, only a couple years old. But, what does the future look like for you guys down the road?
Yeah, we want to be ubiquitous on security cameras across the United States, because the more cameras deployed on, the percentage is a higher probability that we're going to detect someone and stop something and save lives. So when people walk around the United States, what do we do about active shooters and mass shootings? I want people to say ZeroEyes. I want us to be on, what's there, over 100 million commercial security surveillance cameras in the United States alone. I want to be on every single one of them. That might take like 7 to 10 years, but I could at least get somewhere close to that in the next couple of years, I think. And then, stop one of these. When you stop one, then you're going to have a better opportunity to stop another one. And hopefully you stop enough people to rethink what they're doing. And maybe instead of pulling out an assault rifle when you're pissed off and upset at everyone, people kind of go back old school and just punch a bully in the face or something.
Bold statements, and I love it, Mike. I really appreciate that, man, what you just said there. So my last and final question, just a question I ask all my manufacturers, just a 60-second hot seat, man, of why ZeroEyes, why should we, even entertain the company, use the analytics. Give me your 60-second pitch of why ZeroEyes.
Yeah, I just kind of gave it up a minute ago, but like I said, we started this company because we want to make a difference, and we want to have an impactful change in the United States. Gun violence it's a real problem in the United States, and we have a solution that is totally apolitical. It's like people from both sides of the aisle could get on this, and because it makes sense and it can make a difference. Is it a magic cure-all? No, because good security comes in layers. It's not going to be like, oh yeah, we're going to solve every problem. Like, no, but it is definitely a cost-effective solution that can make a difference for the long term. And I mean, even if we just save one life because we put this company together, it's going to make my day. And so when people ask what do we do about mass shootings, active shooters, people answer ZeroEyes.
I swear these get better every episode I have in this podcast series. And Mike, that was probably the best one yet, man. So thank you for that. And for those that have questions or want more information about the company, Mike, how can they get more information about you guys? What's the contact info?
Yeah, go to ZeroEyes.com. That's the best way to get in touch with us. There's plenty, depending if you want to be a partner or you're looking for a quote or you want to apply for a job. It's all there on the website, and we respond immediately.
Awesome. Great to hear that. And for those that have questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to email me at info@securityvip.net. Once again, that's info@securityvip.net. You can watch this episode on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on LinkedIn, and listen to us on Spotify.com for all the latest updates and guests on this podcast series. Mike, thank you for the time, brother, and we will catch you guys on the next one.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.